What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. So today we are reacting to a video called When Japan's New Aircraft Carrier Met the US Navy, Then This Happened. So we're going to find out what happened. What was there conflict between carriers? We don't know, but we'll find out. But before we do,
smash that subscribe button because we are en route to 100k.
subscribe, guys, and then we will watch this.
Yeah.
They thought it would be routine, just two Allied carriers meeting at sea. It wasn't. Out in the Pacific, the sky was clear and the sea was calm, but the air, you could cut it with a knife. The Japanese warship Yass approached from the east, sleek, silent, newly armed with vertical landing F-35Bs. To her west, a U.S. Navy supercarrier waited, flanked by destroyers, decks humming with operations. What happened next surprised everyone on both decks. As the American F-35B made its final approach, something unexpected rose up on the Kaga's signal mast. Not a warning, not a protocol, a simple, unofficial signal flag. An old-school naval gesture of recognition, respect.
Oh, wow.
The Japanese deck crew paused, confused at first. Then you saw it. The nods, the glances, the shared understanding.
I bet at first they thought this thing's about to bomb us or something. Like they did not think it was peace for like a split second.
Two carriers, two countries, one language. Capability. Because this wasn't just an exercise. It was the first real moment that Japan's reborn naval air power stood side by side with the most powerful navy on Earth and proved it belonged there.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, there was tension, cultural differences, command styles that didn't always sync. But at 500 feet above the water as the US fighter touched down on Japanese steel, all of that faded. What mattered was this.
It's like a white flag.
What happens when Japan and the US don't just cooperate, but fly as one carrier strike group? That's what this video is all about. And trust me, it went way further than anyone expected.
Japan's carrier looks like it's part of the US stuff. Like it fits well as if it's a team. Like that's how it should be. Humanity should be like that everywhere, but unfortunately it just can't happen.
Then there wouldn't be a hierarchy.
There would
If everyone was very peaceful, let's be honest.
there shouldn't be a need for a hierarchy, but there has to be because there's always someone or something kicking off.
The jet hit the deck with barely a bounce. That American F-35B wasn't just landing, it was making history. The ship it landed on? Not American, not old school, not even technically a carrier a few years ago.
Wow.
It was the JS Kaga, Japan's newly reborn flat top.
That's crazy.
And this moment wasn't a drill, it was a reveal. You see, not long ago, Kaga was a helicopter destroyer, designed for search and rescue, disaster relief, and sub-hunting. But all that changed. Japan took that hull, stripped it down, and turned it into something no one ever expected. A true fixed-wing carrier. Their first one since World War II.
Damn.
Think about that. For decades, Japan avoided anything that looked like a traditional offensive navy. Politics, constitution, history. All of it pointed away from aircraft carriers. And then came China. Then North Korea. Then Taiwan Strait tensions. And suddenly, Japan's doctrine caught up with reality. So what did they do? They upgraded the Kaga big time. Reinforced the flight deck with heat-resistant coatings for vertical landings, reworked the bow for better aircraft operations, integrated navigation systems compatible with US Navy protocols, and most importantly, they made it F-35B ready. That's right.
Jokes.
The same stealth jet that can hover, spin, land on a dime, and talk to US systems like they were born in the same lab. This ship is no gimmick, it's no showpiece, it's a working, deployable platform designed to operate seamlessly with U.S. Navy carrier strike groups. And this landing wasn't a PR stunt. It was the first time an American F-35B touched down on a Japanese carrier. Not a model, not a simulation, real jet, real mission.
That's a big moment because you would, like, I would never think different countries jet landing on another country's carrier unless they're like proper close. There has been previous conflict with China and America. So it was, I guess this moment, like they said, breaks history. Even though they're in good times at the moment, it's still
real steel. This was Japan's quiet way of saying, we're not just watching the Pacific anymore, we're in it. And for the sailors watching from the deck of the U.S. carrier across the formation, they knew exactly what this meant. The Kaga had crossed the line from support vessel to strike ship. And when that happens, you don't just change a ship's purpose, you change the entire balance of power. So what's the big deal, right? One fighter, one landing, one handshake across the sea. Big deal. Wrong. Because this wasn't just about showing off, this was about showing up together. You've got Japan's JS Kaga sailing in formation with a full-blown US carrier strike group. We're talking radar systems synced, flight ops coordinated, deck crews moving like they trained together for years. And here's the kicker. They didn't have to do this. No.
This is such a massive moment because obviously they were in war many years ago. World War II?
Yeah.
World War II, they were in war. And for the US to land their fighter jet on the, Japan's ship.
Yeah, we'll say. Yeah.
Like, it just
it's a big
shows
moment.
They've come such a long way.
Yeah. And that's how it should be.
Despite history.
And I feel like it's a respect thing. Like,
Yeah.
it's like them saying, we see you, but in a respectful way. And, Japan probably panicked for a minute.
But, well, what's happening over here?
But then they realized the saying without even a real communication. This is the possibility of what peace could look like.
No treaty said you must run joint carrier ops. No emergency required it. This was a choice. It was a choice to say loud and clear to anyone watching, we've trained apart, but now we operate together. And someone was definitely watching. China.
Oh, damn.
You better believe PLA satellites were snapping images the second those two carriers came into the same frame. You don't ignore a country like Japan, especially not when it just went from 0 carriers to a launch-ready flat top that can yield US-compatible stealth fighters. And especially not when that carrier is flying side by side with American air power. And if you're China, sitting across the East China Sea watching that unfold, you don't see two navies. You see one strike group flying the flags of both nations.
Together.
This moment rewrote the rules. For the first time in decades, a Japanese carrier isn't just symbolic, it's operational. And the US Navy isn't just supporting Japan, it's integrating with it. That means more than shared missions. It means shared responsibilities, shared targets, shared deterrence. Because out here in the Indo-Pacific, it's not about who sails the biggest ship, it's about who's willing to sail together when it counts. And now, that answer is clear. You want precision? Watch a Japanese deck crew in motion. Every movement rehearsed, every signal sharp.
What I like as well, like they said, this is Japan's first carrier after so long. This was probably such a big learning curve for them because they managed to integrate with the US in this little part, but then they said they was doing orders together and they was basically one. So this allowed them to see what it's like experiencing being around the big boys. And they probably learned so much from it. I know it's might not seem like much, but just the communication skills, the orders, they probably picked up a few things. Said, it's really
I
good.
mean, from the moment they're getting their carrier ready to be able to have an American fighter jet, take
That's
off,
cool.
shows how much they are trying to work with the,
They will not be one.
Americans.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's really really cool.
Zero wasted energy. Now contrast that with the American crew. Efficient, but looser, more intuitive, less rigid. It's a different tempo and somehow it worked. That difference, it showed up everywhere. On the Kaga, callouts were clipped, almost whispered. On the US side, they barked commands across open headsets. You'd think it would clash. But when you're landing 5th gen stealth fighters at 140 knots, things have a way of sinking fast. That's the thing about naval aviation. It doesn't care about culture. It cares about execution. One of the moments that defined the encounter came during a flyover pass. 2 UF-35Bs and 2 Japan Air Self-Defense Force F-35Bs flew as a diamond formation over both ships.
Oh, wow.
Cameras rolled, deck crews paused. The moment was quiet, clean, and deadly sharp. Then came the real test, cross-deck landing ops. A Japanese pilot guided by an American LSO, the landing signal officer, was cleared to touch down on the US carrier. He did. Clean, controlled, right on the wire.
Damn.
Cool.
Not long after, a US Marine pilot brought his F-35B down on the Kaga. Again, perfect execution. You could almost hear the political analysts scrambling to keep up. This wasn't just about landing jets, though. It was about proving something most people didn't think was even possible. That 2 different navies, speaking 2 different languages, operating 2 different command philosophies, could still fly like one unit. And yeah, there were bumps. At one point, a signal miscue delayed a launch from the Kaga's forward elevator. A US LSO had to clarify deck status twice. Turns out the Japanese crew had locked the aircraft's chocks a few seconds too early. Small hiccup, no drama, fixed in seconds. But even that hiccup said something, because instead of pausing operations, both sides adapted on the fly mid-mission. And here's the wild part. All of this was happening in contested waters.
Oh, wow.
The Philippine Sea, well within satellite range of China, and just days after Beijing had flexed its own carrier group past Taiwan. This was no coincidence. It was choreography. The US, Japan, and even a French carrier strike group further south had synchronized movements. A real-world dry run for the one thing no one wants to say out loud. Joint naval response if Taiwan goes hot. During one sortie, radar picked up a Chinese reconnaissance drone loitering near the edge of international airspace. No engagement, no violation.
Spying.
But the response was immediate. 2 American F-18s vectored toward it, flanked by a Japanese F-35. Message sent. We're watching. Back on deck, you could feel the tempo lift. Refuel crews doubled time, ordnance checks tightened, everyone was on edge, but focused. And as dusk hit, the carriers lit up. Landing lights running beacons and the eerie glow of afterburners cutting through the night sky. Aerial ballet, but with teeth. It wasn't chaos, it was choreography. And it told a very clear story. The US and Japan don't just trust each other, they're building muscle memory.
It's good.
Because
That's really good. To think they speak different languages and they're still able to do that is very wild. Damn. Communication is key.
when things go loud in the Pacific, there's no time to rehearse. That's what this encounter proved. Not just that the Kaga could launch jets, not just that the US would help guide them in, but that when the call comes, whether it's Taiwan, South China Sea, or somewhere where somebody's watching, these two navies can operate as one.
Yeah.
And for anyone planning to test that, this encounter was your warning shot. It
They
wasn't
gon'
just a
find
photo
out.
op.
Yeah.
This was power projection. measured in jets, deck drills, and strike group formation, and the world took note, especially Beijing. Because China didn't just see a Japanese ship and a US ship sailing side by side. It saw something far more dangerous, a potential Allied carrier force. That's a nightmare scenario for any military planner in the PLA Navy. One US supercarrier is already a floating airfield. Add in Japan's Kaga, now fully F-35 capable, and you've got dual flight decks, shared ISR, and overlapping air cover stretching hundreds of miles. It's not just strength, it's synergy. And in a region where control of the skies means control of the seas, that matters more than fleet size. It means you can't assume that the US will fight alone anymore. It means Japan isn't just defending its coast, it's projecting reach. And the timing couldn't be more precise. Tensions in the Taiwan Strait are peaking. North Korea is launching test missiles again.
Mud.
Chinese fishing vessels, many acting as state-backed militia, are swarming Philippine waters. The Pacific isn't just simmering, it's heating up. So when Japan and the US coordinate a real-time carrier operation,
It's a statement.
that's not just a message, it's a move. It's a strategic repositioning of doctrine, from reactive to ready. And let's not forget, this isn't just about military alignment, it's about tech, tactics, and trust. The US is letting Japanese pilots fly from its decks. Japan is adjusting its systems to US protocols. That level of interoperability doesn't just happen unless both sides are thinking long game.
Yeah.
And for countries like Australia, the Philippines, and South Korea, this changes the equation. Because if Japan and the US can operate joint carriers, what's stopping a full Indo-Pacific strike network? That's what this moment really means. Not war, not provocation, but preparation. It signals that Allied forces are no longer waiting for something to happen. They're training to end it before it even begins. And if you're a...
China's probably going to get ideas thinking they can do it with Russia because they're really close, aren't they? They're probably thinking if Japan and America can do that, we need to learn how to work together as well and make our team stronger.
State planning to test that readiness? Know this. The ocean may look calm, but two Allied carriers sailing in formation, that's the loudest silence on the sea.
Facts.
So here's where we land. Two aircraft carriers, two nations, one synchronized battle group, moving as if they've done this 100 times before. The US didn't lead, Japan didn't follow, they operated together.
Yeah, that's key.
Good.
And in doing so, they did more than just land jets and share comms. They sent a signal. To allies, we're ready. To rivals, think twice.
So they want.
Because when the Japanese Maritime Self-Defense Force and the US Navy start training like a single unit, that's not routine. That's doctrine in motion. That's a quiet formation today and a loud deterrent tomorrow. And that leads us to one question. Maybe the most important one we've asked so far. If a Japan-US carrier force was deployed near the Taiwan Strait during a future crisis, would it stop the escalation or light the match? Drop your thoughts in the comments.
Very interesting video. Very beautiful to see because you don't hear stories like that at all. Them working together, not taking orders from another, moving like a unit, even though they've never done it before and they speak different languages. Crazy.
It's good because it shows the level of respect each country has for each other, despite the history that they have.
Yeah. And let's see how much further they can develop that because that's just what, the start of what could be so much bigger. Guys, thank you so much for the recommendation. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. For now, peace out.
Bye.